Hi friends, I'm Holly. I have a blog and a forum that's free for quilters and sewists. It's happyquiltypeople.com. So I heard something online yesterday, and it's just kind of been running around my head. You know, when something just doesn't quite sit exactly right with you. And so I wanted to bring it to you guys, see what you thought. I want you to put your thoughts about this topic in the comments. If you are a quilter, a sewist, a friend or relative of a quilter or a sewist, I've got some information for you too. If you're an artist, I've got something that might, I don't know, maybe help you reframe in some way. Who else is this for? Oh, if you're a shop owner, if you know a shop owner, I hope that this video has something that might be helpful for fabric store owners. So what I saw online yesterday was someone who just talked about the fact that she uses maybe lower price fabrics or thrifted fabrics in her quilts that she makes. And she gave herself a terminology that felt, I don't know, it felt a little derogatory to me. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but it just didn't feel, I wanted her to be proud of her ingenuity, and it felt like she was maybe not proud of it. And so I just wanted to address that and see what you guys think about this. And so my initial comment about the post that I saw was I wanted to say, that's me, that's what I do. Like, yes, I'm gonna end up at a quilt store and the thrift shop for my quilting supplies. And I wanted to elaborate a little bit on why and the artistry behind that. And here's the terminology that I came up with talking about with my son. I think as artists, we need to be resourceful, whatever that looks like. So imagine that you are an artist and you may have made a junk journal. So here is a journal that I made out of just some reused paper bits. You can see it's got a gorgeous inside. This is like some very old calendar pieces. I've got music pages, prints, postcards, envelopes, old stickers. There's another envelope, old papers. Just put them in to make a very lovely book. And obviously I can then write in that, draw in that, whatever. Artists are resourceful, and I think quilters have a long history of that. So behind me, I pulled out a quilt that I own that I probably bought at a thrift store, antique store somewhere. It is made out of polyester fabrics. And so what you know about the history of this quilt from this era is that someone would have been making this quilt out of her actual scraps from fabric from clothing that she was making for herself, her family, or it could have been someone that was cutting up used polyester pieces and putting into their quilt. You can see that it's got great piecing. The back looks like it might be just a sheet, like it's just a very simple fabric on the back. So complicated quilting, but a resourceful use of materials. So this was a resourceful quilt artist. Quilters have been that for a long time. Roderick Kiracofe has done a book called Unconventional and Unexpected. I did a quilt folk class where we used this book as a basis, and we talked about some of the quilts in this book, and they're interesting. And they're not perfect, lots of flaws in there. Great book, I encourage you to get it. I'm gonna put the links to some of the things that I'm showing you today in the notes. If you click on those, they're my Amazon links, and I get a very small commission from that. That helps support the blog and the forum. So thank you guys if you click through on those links. So quilters have a history of being resourceful with what they've done. So I laughed because my quilt fabric kind of bags from the day out kind of shopping yesterday went to a quilt store, because I've got several different quilts coming up. I love to take classes and learn new things, but as you do that, typically for each class, you need to have different kinds of fabrics So I want to try an art journaling technique on fabric, and so I needed just a plain fabric. I found an ivory that I liked. And then I'm doing some very patchworky things that need more solid colors, so I just grabbed these lovely colors that I found. What I've learned about myself is if I will think about the season of color that is my color. So for you think about whatever color you like to wear, whatever color you look great in. And I know that when I go to a quilt shop or to a thrift store, a garage sale, like wherever I'm looking at something for quilt material, if I will stick to that color palette when I buy, I won't just say, oh, that is a gorgeous fabric, but if it's entirely out of the range of colors that I typically really love, that's not gonna be a useful fabric for me. That's somebody else's fabric. But so I am a spring and a warm spring, and so these are fabrics that would be in my color palette. So I got those. But an interesting thing happened at the fabric store that I was at. I was in a store that seems like it would check all the boxes. Really cute displays, lots of different lines of a famous maker's fabric. Everything was very well matched. They would have a fabric line, so all the fabric bolts are on a shelf, then they've got all the pre-cuts on the shelf to match the fabric. So if you are looking for a really quick project, that kind of a store presentation is really easy to go into and go, oh, I need one jelly roll for this project. Great, I'm done. That's an easy thing to do. But I thought of an analogy for stores that are set up for like that, because what I found was I had to go around and around the store. Displays were so well set up that when you were looking at one little display, it was one kind of type of fabric. And so maybe it was a Western thing or a vintage fabric little display, or, you know, these colors in this display. If I didn't just love the whole set as is, it was really hard to get around the store and think of something else that would go with that. And so here's what the equivalent of that is when you're just seeing in a store one little set of colors, one little collection of colors, it's like this little paint box. These are Hemi jelly paints. I recommend those. I'll put their link in the comments. These all have a glitter pearl to them. So I could enjoy this. I could do a lot of pictures with this. Like, I could make something really cute with that. But does that have everything a paint artist would want to have in their paint collection? No, it's a very limited palette. And so when you see those kind of things in the quilt store, those very precise, these 6 fabrics go together, and here's their jelly roll, and here's their charm pack, and here's their layer cake. While those things are amazing and convenient, they're this tiny thing. So instead, I want you to imagine that you, as a fabric artist, are gonna go to your fabric store, and you're gonna think about it as if you were seeing a whole rack of paint. Every different kind of paint is gonna have their own area. So maybe you've got acrylic paints like this one, or maybe you've got oil paints or watercolor paints. And then in every section, every paint is gonna have their kinds of colors, the color range that they've got. And then you're gonna pick and choose what you want. Now, obviously, you can blend in paint, and that's a limitation we as fabric artists don't have, is on the product, kind of hard to blend your fabric color, so you've gotta buy it that color. But so the equivalent of that in a fabric store might be, maybe there's an area for, often you see boutiques divided out a lot. I don't know that you necessarily need to do that, but maybe there's an area for denim fabrics or cotton fabrics or linen fabrics. Maybe that's more what the division of fabrics looks like. And then you can see the whole range. Oh, these are all the pinks we've got right here on this shelf. These are all the purples on this shelf. You're keeping your colors more painterly in more of an artist kind of a way. So that was my realization at this store, was I found a few things I liked, but I really actually struggled to buy anything. Even though they had a ton of great stuff, I struggled to actually buy. And part of the deal is it helps you if you have a hero fabric, and I just wasn't finding what went with my quilt projects. When I got home, I did find a couple of things. This was something that I got in, it's a 1 yard cut for $7.99. So it was in a fabric store's little clearance room. It would go nicely with these colors. Okay, so here's where the friends and family of, if you know someone who sews or quilts, this is where you can listen up. So this is one of the most beautiful fabrics I have seen in a while. Obviously, I'm holding a men's shirt. It's got a luster to it. And so what I will do is cut apart at the seams and have just the fabric pieces of this shirt left. If you can look at the back, you can imagine that that's a pretty good sized piece of fabric. It would go with this. I'm doing a class that's a kind of a trip around the world, sort of a patchwork quilt. It could go with these fabrics for that. If I needed solids, that pinstripe wouldn't work as well. So the tip is that if you know somebody who's a quilter, figure out what colors they like to use. And then if you've got a really great item of clothing, instead of getting rid of it or donating it, see if your quilter friend wants it. So then I ended up at a Goodwill just for the fun of it, just to see what they had, just to see if there was any more of this kind of quality of a good men's shirt. So here's my haul from the thrift store. I am doing a denim quilt soon. And so for the denim quilt, I didn't want to have store-bought, like fresh denim. I want this denim to have some character. Like I don't want it to be ripped up. Your long armor would not love it if it was ripped up. But I found a good pair of pants. And I have to tell you, this was marked $24.99 at Goodwill. And it's not even like new with tags, like it's a worn garment. But what I liked about it is it's nice and clean, in good shape, no rips or tears. And see the color at the bottom? The store that I went to, this color was 50% off that day. So they do that with their tags at Goodwill. If you've got a thrift store or shop of some kind local to you, know what their sale days are. I think that is also true about quilt shops. Sometimes they have sales on different kinds of things. So I got that for half price, and I spent that much on it because I liked, I don't know, the color and the wear in it, just to have some interest without it being completely worn. And then, oh, there was another pair of black jeans that I looked at really hard, and they were new with tags. They were a larger size, so they had a lot of fabric. But in the end, I just decided I don't think I want to add black to that quilt. I want to stay blues. I found a teal jean that I'll use, so I want to stay more in that color palette. Here is the shirt that I found. It's a gold label Roundtree in York, which I think is a brand that you might find at like a Dillard's men's department store. And it's just a good basic blue. But what happens with my solids? You're never gonna realize that that was from a men's shirt when you see it crafted together in the quilt. I found they actually had a bin of fabrics. Not all thrift stores do. Sometimes the fabrics just end up with the linens, and I don't want to pick and sort through those, but they did have a little bin of fabrics that were just labeled material or fabric. And so these are both fuzzy felty kind of things. And so I keep a little basket of some pieces that could make a really quick baby blanket. And so I thought this little hedgehog was cute for that, a little pink dot. Okay, I thought this was really fun for fabric, and it's a small size. It would have been lovely if it was a larger size, but it is 100% cotton. That'll be a fun one to put somewhere. I don't have a plan for that. I just found it and liked it. I found a sweater I actually liked just for me. It's a large size, but I like a good baggy sweater, and so that's gonna be fun. I found this one. This one is gonna be another one. It is a Lauren by Ralph Lauren shirt. I couldn't find any stains or anything on it. It is in great shape. So you can see not only is it a color palette I would wear, it would also go with this if I wanted to add something stripy in. So be in tune with what you like. You're gonna find the colors you like, even if they're coming from different locations, different places. It doesn't have to all come from the one, section this big at the quilt shop. The best fabric deal I found was a linen that's a very peachy color. And again, it'll go with all of this. And I don't have a yardage on this. I don't know how much it is. We'll just see. So those are the things I like from the store. So what stayed at the thrift store? You have to be really careful and think about things that are almosts. You're like, oh, well, this is almost good enough. If this wasn't just worn out, maybe it's a little too worn. You can't talk yourself into something. You have to look at it and like it. And maybe you put a framework over something. You're like, oh, well, if I saw this at the quilt store, would I be excited about this color? And if the answer is no, then that's not your piece. I did find something really interesting, and I found a white linen shirt. It had a bit of embroidery at the bottom of it, and it had a clear little stain mark on it, which you knew that was why someone gave it away. And I thought, this might be an interesting piece to play around with fabric dye and see if I could over dye the shirt a color that I liked, a color that could possibly go with this. And I even thought, even with that, it was white embroidery at the bottom, and I thought, even if that embroidery is there, like you would have to work with it a little bit, like you might have to kind of baste sew around the edges of the pieces after you cut that embroidery apart so that it wouldn't fray. But it could have been something really interesting. I just looked at it and thought, I don't think I need another project right now. That's not my thing for today. The other thing that's really hard is honestly denim, because you need a denim that is 100% cotton, and we love our stretchy denim. And so much of the denim has stretch added to it. So anything that has the word stretch or flex, I don't know that this trip I found a single pair of women's pants that did not have something elasticy in it. And so I often just go straight to the men's if I'm gonna check, because I'm interested in the 100% cottons. I'm interested in the men's shirts that are 100% cotton. And I check every label when I go to make sure. The reason that you don't want anything with stretch is because as you start to sew it, it's gonna bend out of shape, and it's just gonna make it harder to line up to get your corners to match. Not worth it. Other things that might be tricky, especially if you're gonna send your quilt to someone to be machine long-armed. Something that could be a problem is if your person has never done denim before, they'll have to have a denim needle on their long arm if you're gonna put denim in your quilt. You don't want anything that's got a texture or raised that could catch a needle. Like, I love a good little eyelet shirt, but those little eyelet holes could catch your long arm needle. And so that would be something that's a no. I love a corduroy, and most of them are stretchy. And so I did have a kind of a jacket picked out, and I thought, oh, that would be really great. But because it was a little sleeveless vest sort of a thing, for the price they had on it, it wasn't that much fabric, and I just didn't love it. So that stayed there. The other thing that stayed there was I found a little denim top that when I was looking at it on the hanger, I was like, oh, I love it. It was a darker blue with a little white pinstripe running through it. But when I pulled it off of the rack, it was a little shorty half shirt in a size small. And I was just like, okay, that's cute fabric, but that's just not worth it. Like, at that point, I should probably get online if I love that fabric and see if I can't find a denim with a pinstripe through it and find its own thing. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Something that I do when I get home is these things that I've gotten and thrifted will go straight into my most powerful hot steam wash. And I may wash them in batches, like by color. Like I might wash some pink or peachy things together. The denims and the blues might go together. This black thing is kind of the only thing black. It might go by itself. But I'll wash it very hot with an extra rinse. And until that point, I'll use these 5-gallon Ziploc bags. I'll put the link for them in the notes. I just store everything in a Ziploc bag. And that's just so if there were to be anything creepy crawly in your clothing, it's not going to get out and get in your house and while you get things unwrapped. I'm very, very conscientious of that. The bag from the thrift store was tied up very tightly. At this particular thrift store, I was thumbing through the hangers and I did see a spider. I jumped and squealed, and everybody around kind of looked at me. But so you wouldn't want to have accidentally brought home a spider, and so I just keep things sealed up in the bag until I've done that process of washing it, something super hot. So that's that. I did want to tell you a little bit more about being a resourceful artist. I want you to respect yourself as an artist. You are not just anything. Insert whatever kind of artist you are. I'm just a whatever. The process of choosing colors, that's very much like choosing your paint palette, and that's part of your artistry. Whether it is a wild, crazy mess like this quilt, I mean, goodness, here's bright yellow and bright green beside more pastel pink and blue. But every block is interesting. It's fun to look at. That's the interesting part of being a quilter, is you get to put it together however you want. So this spring I was at a flea market, an outdoor flea market, and I came across a lovely antique booth where someone was helping with the booth, and she was a quilter and she brought her quilts. They were folded up. She was making entirely new quilts, and she was having fun. She was using fun patterns, fun blocks, fun colors. Some of them were sort of kid-oriented, and some were just bright, fun colors. They were fun quilts. But when I looked at her price tag, I was sad for her. Because even if she was buying really inexpensive fabric, she was really underselling her artistry. And she was charging about $100 for a good size quilt. It probably would have fit, I don't know, a twin, a full, a queen, something like that. And so maybe she's just there for the joy of it. But I thought, if she's gonna go to the trouble of setting up at this market, I wish she would value her artistry. Even if she's using an inexpensive fabric that she got at a discount or on sale somewhere, I think it's okay to gather your materials from wherever they come from, whether that is a junk journal or a cheap fabric, or maybe you bought the most expensive fabric in the quilt store. However you get there to whatever you want your art to look like, take pride in that. Be so proud of your work. Anyway, I was just sad for the lady at the flea market, because I felt like she was selling in a really hard place, because people came there for bargains, and she was also competing against people who had collected quilts from garage sales and stuff, and then were reselling them. And so they weren't selling them as the artist who made the product. So I would wish her well, and I hope that she can find something that is maybe a better venue, a better place to sell her product for others. And I wanted to leave you with this idea about being a resourceful artist. So this is just an inexpensive charcoal pencil, right? Not a big deal. I am not an artist who can draw well with a pencil or anything, really. I like big, messy paint things because I think, okay, I can do that if it doesn't have to be really fine portrait drawing. But you've seen a charcoal pencil drawing by an artist that is just amazing to look at. But this is the tool. It's a pencil. Whether it was a pencil that you bought at the dollar store or a pencil that you bought at the fancy art store, it doesn't matter. It's about what you do with that pencil. So, artists, here's your challenge. I want you to think about how you view yourself. And let me know if this has been helpful. I hope that you can reframe it if you need to be proud of whatever materials that you're using, to be proud of your creativity. Encourage you to be creative. I encourage your friends, if your friends are still watching, to bring you things to help you with your creativity. And for the fabric stores, I know I've issued kind of a challenge to you to think about yourself more in terms of being an art supply store. instead of just marketing bolts of fabric, because that's what you are for us. You are vitally important to the quilting community, and we need you, and so we love it when you provide us with the ingredients for the color palettes that we want, and we appreciate that. You guys, thanks for watching. Give me a like, give me a follow. Join us over at Happy Quilty People. We'd love to see your voice on the forum. Thanks for watching, you guys. Y'all have a good day.